Hi, welcome back to Random Reading Pathways. I'm Matt, and before it gets too much further into the new year, I wanted to get to a tag I have to do, otherwise it wouldn't make much sense to do this one anymore. So this is the appropriately titled New Year, New Me tag. So this is a new original tag that was created by Kevin over at Kevin Toll Reads. And yeah, he had some great answers to this one, as well as great questions that he came up with. And he was nice enough to tag me to do this one. So yeah, I'm gonna jump through the questions and see what I come up with. Okay, so the first question here is, what's a book from your 2025 reading goals that scares you? I only have one book in my collection that I think does scare me legitimately right now, and that is Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. I hauled this used a couple months ago, and I did a video featuring it, and I mentioned largely the same thing, that I'm kind of scared of it, and that it's just so dense, and there's so many allusions and references in here that I have heard about that you need to sort of know, otherwise it's going to go over your head. Just the length and the complexity of this, it's all kind of a little worrying for me. And for that reason, recently I kind of have been excluding this book, to be honest, from even being considered to be chosen as my next read. Just don't think I'm ready yet, or in the headspace, or have enough preparation done for this. And so, I've always kind of viewed it as I'm going to get to it one day when the time is right. But too scary for me right now. And also just too, I'm just too uninformed to go into it. At least that has been my headspace. I did happen to stumble on a video yesterday, though, from Macaroni Books, and I'll link to his channel down below. I've been enjoying watching his videos lately, but yeah, he is diving into Gravity's Rainbow, and I was laughing kind of when I was watching him discuss it in his video, because he approached it initially saying a lot of the same things that I said, to the effect of, I need to study up on this first. I thought I needed to just kind of prepare myself. I didn't think I could take it on. But then I was happy to see in his video that he's plowing in, and he's changed his tune with it, and he said basically, forget that. I'm going in head first, and he's getting through it. So far so good, it seems, for him. So having seen that, maybe that will change my tune on this, and I'll put it into the pile. I'll put it legitimately into the pile of my TBR for the year, but whether or not I actually get to it, we'll see. But there is definitely going to be a level of fear associated with picking this up whenever that time comes. Okay, next is, what is a book on your 2025 reading goals that you want to start immediately? So I have it right here, and I can still qualify this as want to start, because even though I got it from the library a couple days ago, it has still sat here on my shelf unopened, and this is probably the reason. I mean, the sheer length of this. This is The Light of All That Falls by James Islington. It's the third and final book in his Lacanius epic fantasy trilogy. So I read the first two last year and enjoyed them. I wouldn't say they were life-changing or anything like that, but certainly solid and enjoyable. This might be the biggest book that I've ever seen. So, but that doesn't deter me. I do want to get to this one, and I do want to do it immediately, which is why I took it from the library. So I think today's the day I'm going to actually start this. But yeah, I mean, this is going to take me definitely all month. I'm going to have to renew this from the library probably at least once. But we'll see how quick I can get through this. But I do want to finish this trilogy, so I can conclude it and see what happens. And so that's the next immediate read for me on the sci-fi or fantasy list. Okay, so next up is a book from last year that made you reflect and or grow as a reader. So I'm going to highlight here a book that I got from my local library. I picked it with random number generator, and it's Laura Messina Amai's A Phone Booth at the Edge of the World. So I guess the reason I'm highlighting this for growing as a reader is this book came out in 2021, I believe, and how do I describe this accurately? It seems to me to fall into that category of sort of trendy, sort of popular books, that contemporary literary fiction that come out. I think it might have ended on some critics lists, end of year lists and things like that. It's certainly a little outside the wheelhouse of something I would typically read. It's a little more of a lightweight type read. I tend to just, for whatever reason, saddle myself with dense, heavy, sort of, there's just, more complicated reads. And this one's a little more breezy as far as the writing goes. But I think it was enjoyable, and I liked the book. And basically, it's about a woman who has tragically lost her daughter and her mother in a tsunami. And it's a real life tsunami that is referenced that took place in Japan. But it's a fictional account of it in the story. So yeah, I think it made me grow in the sense that I need to remind myself to always be open to reading from different genres, different authors, and different sort of types of literary fiction. I don't always need to gravitate towards, thick tomes that are, dense and complicated. This one was just a little bit quicker and easier to get through, a little bit simpler in terms of the themes and everything, but it was equally rewarding. I did like the book, and I think it made me, grow in the sense of maybe it is nice and refreshing to toss in a few of these in the rotation that are just a bit more, I wouldn't say it's a palate cleanser because it's not exactly, bright and happy subject matter, but, a little more of a lighter read than some of the denser, tougher ones that I usually stick myself with. So it made me grow in that sense, and definitely made me reflect, because largely one of the bigger themes of the book, I would say, is probably reflection. The main character, the reason it's the phone booth at the edge of the world is there is a literal phone booth that an elderly Japanese man kind of has out in his garden, and he facilitates sort of people being able to come visit this space, people who are grieving, who have lost loved ones, and he speaks to them, talks to them about it, but also lets them use his old phone booth that he has in his garden, and the main character does, and she encounters other people doing the same, and they use it to do whatever they need to do to grieve. So it's very interesting to see, how that plays out for her in this story. And yeah, she does a lot of reflecting, of course, given the plot, and it certainly made me grow and reflect as well. So next up is what is an author that you plan to try for the first time in 2025? So from the standpoint of fantasy and sci-fi, which I'm always reading sort of one of those books alongside reading a standalone book, it is very likely I'll get to someone new this year because I'm in the middle of A Song of Ice and Fire right now. I've just finished the second book, A Clash of Kings. I don't have A Storm of Swords, the third book, right now in my collection, so I'm not going to be reading it at the moment. I sometimes do this. I purposely will hold off on specifically searching out a book that I know is coming next in a series or something like that, just to kind of break things up for me. I certainly could order Storm of Swords online, or I could probably get it used cheap somewhere, but I don't typically go out of my way to do that. I just let books come to me. If I happen to be out and find them and I need them, I'll grab them. But, I don't rush myself to read through a series just because that book's coming next. I have I have plenty else that I need to read. So in that vein, once I finish the end of the Lacanius trilogy, which I showed before, I will be needing to start a new sci-fi or fantasy series. And I looked at my shelves. I have two books there that may be the candidates to do that, and they're both new authors to me. So I have them here. The first one is a little more well-known and more widely discussed from what I've seen on BookTube and online, and that's Robin Hobb with Ship of Magic. I've heard a lot about Robin Hobb in the fantasy circles. I've heard a lot about the Live Ship Traders trilogy, I believe it is. I know that she's kind of the most well-known for sort of a parallel trilogy to this, which I guess is the Assassins. I forget the exact name. It's the Assassins trilogy of some sort. This, I believe, is set in the same universe as the Assassins books, but it has to do with magical ships. And I believe it can be read separately from the Assassins books. I don't think it's dependent on reading those, so hopefully that's the case. But I've heard a lot about Robin Hobb, and I've been looking forward to grabbing this one at some point. So it's definitely possible I'll grab this one to start the Live Ship Traders series this year. Another author I might grab for the first time to get a sci-fi series going here is Anne Leslie Grohl. This is Anvil of the Sun, and this is book one of the Cloak and Dagger series. So this one was, I was a used bookstore that I was in, and I just was in the phase at that time of trying to grab some books to build up the sci-fi and fantasy collection that I have. So I ran the random number generator, and it gave me this book, which conveniently was book one in the series. So I grabbed this. I didn't know anything about this or the author, but this is Anne Leslie Grohl. So come to find out, after I got this and read up on her a little bit, she is a wildly important editor in the fantasy world because she is George R.R. Martin's longtime editor. I don't know if she's edited every single Song of Ice and Fire book, but from what I gather, I think she has and does continue to be his editor for those books, or at least one of his editors. And I was reading that series at the time that I randomly stumbled on this, so it just seemed kind of interesting that pathway led me from him to her. She is most known as an editor, I believe, but she does have this Cloak and Dagger series, so it was kind of cool to make that connection to George R.R. Martin and read his editor. And so I haven't opened this yet, but like I said, I do need to get going on another series, and it could be Anne Leslie Grohl. And it's just funny too, because another weird connection, coincidentally, I'm also a fan of the sci-fi author Connie Willis. And whenever I'm out, looking for used books, if I see Connie Willis, I just grab it because I loved Passage that I read by her, and I want to continue to read more of her. So I did that at the library. Again, I'm in libraries quite a bit with just me visiting and my kids. So I always check the sale cart, and for $1, I got this one the other day, Blackout by Connie Willis. So this is an author I've read already, so this wouldn't be a new author, but I just wanted to highlight one more funny coincidence. So in flipping this open when I got it, I just quickly looked at the acknowledgments here at the beginning, and it says, I want to thank all the people who helped me and stood by me with Blackout, etc., etc., etc. My incredibly patient editor, Anne Grohl. So Anne Grohl is editing every sci-fi and fantasy author that I'm a big fan of, apparently. So weird coincidence. And like I said, I came across her book using the random number generator, which just leads me to these weird things. It happens all the time. So yeah, if I'm able to get to Anne Grohl's book this year, I'll be definitely happy to do that. So number 5 is a book or series you revisit for comfort. I'll make this one pretty quick and easy and straightforward. I think it's the answer for a lot of people. No different for me. So it's just Harry Potter. There's no series or book or anything like that I've revisited much at all, really, if anything. Certainly not to the level of this. I mean, I've read through the series many times. And, it's nice now because I think it was starting at the end of 2022, I believe. My daughter at the time was going on 5, I think, or maybe going on 6. Starting to lose track these days. But all I can say is at this point, I have read to her all 7 Harry Potter books, out loud. So I revisited the series pretty recently that way. It was kind of interesting to read it out loud. I really didn't do as many voices as I probably should have done, but maybe I'll transition her to the audiobooks of these now that I've read them to her, which I've heard good things about. But yeah, any way I can get back into the Harry Potter world, whether it's reading it to myself or reading it to my kids now, or just, flipping through it and maybe checking out the movies here and there. It's a series I'm always going to love, so I'll probably always be revisiting it one way or another. And then next is favorite debut or first book in a series from last year. Again, I'll just make this one pretty quick. This was my runner-up for favorite fiction book of the year last year, and it's just A Game of Thrones. I did mention this series earlier in the video, and I did talk about George R.R. Martin, and I continue to talk about him because I've enjoyed the series very much so far, and this is book 1 in A Song of Ice and Fire. Now here's the thing. This book is called A Game of Thrones, and annoyingly, this copy I have cuts off the A at the beginning and just calls it Game of Thrones to align with the television show title. But, the book is called A Game of Thrones. But yeah, I was really happy to start this series off last year, and I did love this this first book in the saga, so I'll go with this one. And then next up is, do you have a specific reading goal or challenge for this year? I I don't have anything specific other than, just to put it very simply, I just want to read more books than I did last year. I tried to maybe set a number for myself last year tentatively and came up short of it. And that kind of leaves you feeling a little like, well, I know I read a lot, and I read certainly way, way many multiples more than I had in any years past in my life. So that seems like an accomplishment in itself, even though I didn't hit the theoretical number I was looking for at the beginning of the year. So this year, that's it. The goal is just to, read more books than I did last year. Even if it's one more than I did, I'd like to just make that number continue to grow. And whether it's that or page count, read more pages, because sometimes pages and books don't really align, but just read more. That's pretty much the goal for this year. And then the next prompt is, I haven't been saying the prompt names, apologies for that, but this one is Breaking Walls. Any non-book related goals you have for this year? Other than trying to continue to encourage my kids to begin reading for one of them and continue reading for the older, that's kind of book related. So other than that, it's kind of a long-standing goal of mine to see if I can write a song. I've been, dabbling around with that for many years. And over the many years I've tried to do that, I think I've maybe gotten 4 or 5 together, but I'd like to see if I can write another song this year. And then quick cut, just to tack on the end of this, which I forgot. So the end of this tag is teamwork, to go ahead and tag other people. So I will try to find some people that Kevin did not tag for this and haven't done it, and see if I can tag them. But yeah, thanks again to Kevin for coming up with a really fun tag and tagging me to do it. Happy New Year again to everybody, and I will be back soon with some more updates. Thanks.